Shri Shri Ras Viharini Juki Jai. Sub Vaishnavan Ko Jai Shri Krishna. Day 85, letter 34, verses 12 to 18. Verse 12. On the grace-filled path, do not foster any desire for any reward. A worldly being who has accumulated lots of riches will willingly give up their life if they lose that wealth. Similarly, on this path of service to the Lord, a devotee should love serving the Lord, and if that service is interrupted, they will also feel grief and want to give up their life. When you serve the Lord, do not do it with a desire for any reward. Such desire destroys the main reward of this path of grace. Selfish desire is an obstacle to true love for the Lord, so avoid it. On the worldly plane, wealth is the most important thing, and people are ready to suffer ups and downs to acquire it, and even to give up their life because of their attachment to it. You should have at least that much love for your divine service. Verse 13. The spiritual mindset is called Sarvatma Bhav. When you experience Shri Krishna alone in everything and everyone and in every situation, is when you are able to naturally renounce all consideration for worldly or scriptural gain, and when you serve him with absolutely no selfish expectation. Tika. This loving sentiment towards the Lord is characterized by totally natural love for the Lord and natural renunciation with no desire for any worldly or scriptural result. Sri Acharyaji has written in his Chatur Shloki, 4 verses treatise, when you have established Shri Krishna, the Lord of Gokul, in your heart, with this Sarvatma Bhav, then it is not totally excessive to speak. Then is it not totally excessive to speak of worldly or scriptural matters? Shri Krishna is the all-pervading super-soul. Keep him in your heart and serve him, but have no desire for worldly or scriptural return or expectation of result. Focus your mind exclusively on him and see him everywhere. Verse 14. In this path of grace, humility is first and foremost. The other usual means to attain devotion, like listening and praising, etc., are not the driving force. One must be truly humble, and then the Lord, becoming pleased, as he was by the humility of the Vrajagopis, will himself grant the reward. Tika 14. The only practice within the path of grace is humility. When pride recedes, then other faults also diminish. And when humility is perfected, then only Sri Thakurji appears and grants the blessing of his direct experience and sight. In the 5 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam wherein the Ras Leela has been described, Ras Panchadhyayi, we learn that when the Vrajagopis sang the Lord's praises after he had disappeared, and thereby realized that they were in fact devoid of any means by which to adequately adore him, they attained true humility. Then he reappeared before them immediately. When you lose the attitude of I am spiritually qualified due to my practices, then you may attain humility which satisfies the Lord, who then appears to you and grants you the bliss of his direct experience and sight. Verse 15. Grasp the principles of this path in the best possible way so that humility arises, and know anything that damages humility to be in opposition to the path. Tika. Without humility, the devotional reward cannot be had. Do whatever it takes to cultivate humility. Any practice that damages humility should be known to be directly opposing the path of grace. It doesn't matter what practice that is, it is. If it does not nourish humility, then forget it. These statements indicate that the actions innate in all other paths are contrary to the reward of the path of grace. This much you should know for sure, and strictly avoid such actions and practices. Verse 16. When you gain acceptance into this path, then the Lord, Shri Krishna, dispeller of all fear, will certainly increase your humility. The worldly mindset which fosters pride and other disqualities is destroyed. Acceptance into this path requires that worldly pride be removed, and thereafter Sri Hari definitely helps you to develop humility. Tika 16. The Lord increases the humility of those devotees of the path of grace who have taken shelter in this path through the grace of Sri Acharyaji. He also removes the pride generated in the worldly mind which obstructs the granting of the devotional reward. It is a well-known teaching in the 5 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam wherein is described the great rasa dance of Sri Krishna and the gopis' rasa Ras Panchadhyay, that the Lord first played his flute and thereby summoned all the gopis to his side. They then enjoyed loving pastimes together, but then the gopis became proud and the Lord disappeared. Thereafter, when the gopis became intensely humble, he reappeared. In this very same way, in this path of grace, it is the Lord who perfects the devotees' humility by removing their pride. Considering these devotees to be his own, he grants them humility by removing their pride whenever and wherever they have attachment to the worldly scene. When humility is thus established, he can shower his grace. Verses 17 and 18. The sustenance of those whom the Lord has accepted comes from him alone. Embodied souls are tainted by their very nature, and they do not act appropriately. Therefore the Lord also punishes, like a concerned father would do. When such punishment arises, surrendered devotees know this also to be grace. Tika 17 and 18. The Lord himself deals with the sustenance of those souls whom he has accepted. Those souls often do not recognize this because of their tainted nature. Sri Acharyaji has written in his Bade, Instructions for Spiritual Children treatise, embodied souls are tainted by their very nature. But the Lord has already arranged the sustenance and subsistence of those souls who have been accepted into this path. He is still providing it and will continue to do so. Knowing that their mind can be corrupted due to a single moment's bad association, he destroys it and maintains that situation so that they cannot go over to any other. In the same way that an innocent child is protected by its parents from the dangers of fire and water, so are those souls whom the Lord makes his own protected by him, even when they forget him and do not realize this, and this punishment on his part prevents them from reoffending. The embodied soul often makes mistakes out of ignorance in the same way that Sri Krishna's father, Sri Nandaraji, went to perform worship of the goddess Ambika. He was punished by the Lord, but even in this unhappy situation, the accomplished devotee realizes that all this is his grace and never leaves his shelter. Sri Gosaiji has written in his Vigyapti treatise, knowing us to be your very own, if you punish us, we will appreciate this. Sri Gosaiji is explaining here that even if you punish us, we will remain very happy and know that you regard us as your own. Whenever we offend, please do admonish us. From these statements it can be understood that even if the Lord punishes us in the role of our Father, and we are at first saddened by this, we should know this to be great grace, and never leave the shelter of Sri Mahaprabhuji. So we'll pause the reading today. Braj Kishori Seva Trust will recommence tomorrow on day 86, continuing in letter 34. आज के आनंद की जय हो, सब वैष्णवों को सादर सदैव सप्रेम सानंद। जय श्री कृष्ण। श्री आचार्य जी की जय हो, सदा जय हो। श्री श्री रास विहारिणी जी की जय हो जी। जय श्री राधे।